And as it's already been kind of alluded to a couple of times, Merry Christmas. Anybody else looking forward to Tuesday? Looking forward to the gleam in the little one's eyes? Looking forward to being a little one again? I know I am. Merry Christmas, church. We have been, for this month, working through the promises in Isaiah chapter 6. The promises of who it was that was coming. We look back on those promises because those are promises kept. But at the time that Isaiah was promising them, they were stunning and amazing and wonderful. And we're looking this week at the fourth and final of those names. And I want to start out by asking you, where is your ah? Do you have one of those? A place where you can go and you just go, ah. You know what I'm talking about? I will tell you my own. For me, it is walking in the woods around here. Pisgah National Forest, DuPont National Forest, the Turkey Head, the Turkey Pen Trailhead, and just about anywhere where there's a tree and a mountain, that for me just allows it all to go away. Yesterday I went for a walk up at the Mills River camping area. We drove as far back as we could until we encountered a gate. We got out of the car and we walked up a road, and I say we, it was me and my boys. We get way up on the ridge line, and I'm looking down, and I'm like, hey guys, do you want to go down that way? We can go down there. And Silas was like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, Dad, that's not a hill. That's a cliff right there. And, it was somewhere in between. He's probably right. And I was like, I think we can take it. He's like, no, Dad, I can't drive us out of here. We're not doing that, But when I get out you put me in a mountain laurel tunnel, and everything just falls away. You know what I'm talking about? There doesn't have to be any green on the trees. I couldn't find a picture with the trees all on the ground, because nobody likes those. But I can be out, and it can be the middle of winter, and I'm walking in those trees, and it all just goes away. And the peace just comes. You know what I'm talking about? Maybe for you, it's got nothing to do with what I just said. Maybe it's like a boardwalk beside a river or something, or perhaps it's standing next to, or as the photographer here did, in the middle of a mountain stream, or maybe it's beside the ocean, or maybe it's up in the mountains, or I don't know. Maybe it's a shopping mall. I don't know, but do you know what I'm talking? Does anybody not understand what I mean? That sensation of release, of calm, of being overwhelmed. Do you know what it's like when everything is just right with the world? Where you can step out of where everything is wrong with the world and everything gets okay. Maybe it's not a place, maybe it's people, right? You ever have that where you get together and, Jethro could not be convinced to put on a shirt even though he knew Mom wanted to take a picture, and still, look, everybody is smiling. Everybody is happy. Or maybe this time of year you have to pull up an extra chair at both ends of the table, and I want to know where the dude who took this picture is supposed to sit down. It's not fair, but on the table. But he's got to go sit at the kids' table, right? She gets to sit at the grown-up table, and whoever took the picture. Anyway, that feeling when you're together with the people that you love, that you don't see often enough, and the release just happens. Laughter and the fun in the air. Where's your ah? Where's your place that you can just let it go? Then that moment when everything just feels right. Why do we need an ah place? And why doesn't it last? Why do I have to keep going back into the woods, right? Why do we need to set it all down? Why do we end up carrying it? Well, the world that we live in requires doesn't it? You ever been this guy? And just look at the look on his face. He's like, yeah, they're going to put this all on me. Yeah, I didn't not get the client, but it's all going to be on me. Look, both of them are looking, and that dude is clearly shouting, and he's pointing at the TPS report that he didn't attach to his thing, and he's gonna, that man needs an ah. Or have you ever been with this? It's not so, they don't care right now, right? They just care, the green truck is mine, right? And it's mine. But you ever been in that room while that's going on? Anybody who ever raised a kid knows that they are precious and they are wonderful and they are beautiful and they steal your peace. And they're beautiful and they're wonderful. You know what I mean? You ever have that moment where you're just like, okay, you know what? I got to call somebody, anybody to come over and sit in this room because I'm going to run away right now and I may or may not be back. Ever been there? Because that person needs an ah, or then maybe it's not so funny. Because we live in a world that doesn't know the ways of peace. Let's reflect back over the last century. I have photographs from every single one of the big ones where that's Korea, where we forgot the ways of peace. We lived in the ways of fear, death, pain. No wonder then that we need an ah when this is the world that we live in, because that man, that boy, if he lived, became a man who carried with him the absence of peace, and he was able to step back into that absence of peace anytime he wanted to. That's the world we live in. A world that robs us. Or maybe you've never been in any of that. You still can't seem to find your way there. Maybe it's your own shadow chasing you. Your own stresses, your own problems, your own conflicts. And no doubt I don't have photographs for all of them because I didn't want to make us all sob 2 weeks in a row. But maybe it's a hospital room or a funeral home. There's so much around us to rob us, and so much within us that steals it from us. So many anxieties and fears and worries and terrors in this cold, unthinking, uncaring, broken world that we live in that knows the ways of unpeace so well. That's why we yearn for because what our hearts know, even when our minds don't, is that we were made for peace. We weren't created for this. Our hearts know that this is the world that we live in. This is not the way it was meant to be, and we weren't meant to live in all this brokenness and sorrow. It's not the way it's supposed to be, and there's something not right, and our hearts want it to be right, and we want to be able to let it go and to find our way to the place where everything is right again. We live in the darkness, and so the Scripture, the Word of God, comes to us to say the people who have walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who lived in a land of deep darkness, on them light shone. We know the darkness. We know the ways of unpeace. Am I wrong? Does anyone not resonate with this message from God? He comes. That's why I go into the woods. That's why we all go to our awe place, because He comes. Whether we're attentive or not, He is always attentive. Peace does not come from the people of darkness. We do not produce it ourselves. We cannot generate peace. Not in our current state. Peace comes as gift, or it doesn't come. It comes from the outside. It's why we seek it. Peace comes to us, not from us, not in us. It is given. It is a light shining into darkness, and it is this light. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. He is the Prince who brings peace. In our final sermon of the Advent series this year, we're going to look at this one. There are just two words that we have to look at. I'm pretty sure we can leave "of" out. So let's look at the other two for just a moment. The first one is peace. That's the Hebrew for peace, the word Isaiah would use to say that he was Prince of Shalom. And what exactly is that? The English doesn't help us to get the full breadth of that word, really. Because when we think of peace, we mostly think of the absence of conflict. But shalom is so much more than that. It is not merely the absence of trouble, the absence of things being bad that generates peace. It is the presence of the good. It doesn't just mean a lack of war. It means the presence of justice and soundness, a society that holds together where people treat one another right, and ethics are in place, and morality is good, and no one mistreats anyone else. It is the way of God, this peace, where God brings us into wholeness and soundness and well-being and purposefulness, where I know what I'm for. I know what I'm meant to be and to do. It's this contentment with what I can accomplish and do well and do right and do for other people and do good. It's a sense that everything is in order. That it isn't a chaotic life that I'm living, but a meaningful one. And it's rich and deep and wonderful. And knowledge that everything is right, or at least that it will be. And that everything is as it should be. That's shalom. That is what he means when he says Prince of Peace. He means Prince of this amazingly rich life. This is goodness. This is joy. This is what it is. Have you ever been in the moment where things are just clicking along and everything goes well? That moment where you know you're going to make it, it's going to be okay, and not only okay, but good and wonderful. And the goals that you've set out to accomplish come together and everything is right. That's part of shalom. There's also that feeling of being content and having well-being. There, I put up a picture of a porch because I don't have a picture of my grandparents' porch, but it's one of the most shalom places for me. A place where I used to be able to look across a valley. The trees have grown up. You can't see the valley anymore. But when I was small, I could look across that valley and I could watch the waves of rain as they rolled across it. And it was another place. And it was an place in part because of the beauty of it, but in part because I knew I was with people who loved me desperately and everything was going to be okay. My grandparents were either beside me on that porch or in the room behind me, and everything was good. To rock on that chair and just rest and listen to the rain. I don't have a picture of my grandfather. I suppose I could have found one. And this man looks nothing like him. My grandfather didn't have a mustache except for right there. That's what pulled me to this picture, is the eyes. My grandfather was a quiet man. He spoke rarely. But there was a look about him. He was a man who knew peace. He knew contentment. He knew shalom. He knew what we are seeking when we go after. And he lived in it. How did he do that? Wouldn't that be great? To be an place? To be somebody else's Wouldn't that be wonderful? He lived long with the other word we look at, That's why. He lived with the prince. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders. Prince is a government position. It's one who will be a ruler. And in this context, it's prince because God is king, and every human king is always prince. So the one who comes among us is the king of peace on this earth. And so he is Prince of Peace, which means he is ruler over us. Look at how much Isaiah goes on to stress the governmental issues. He says, of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end. Okay, what is government? I mean, government doesn't do anything competently, does it? And do you love going to the DMV? You know, you love it. It's a mess, isn't it? You know, layer upon layer of bureaucratic You know, why on earth is this being promised to us? Because this is a government that gets it right all the way through. Because he's governor, he's king, he's prince. And what a government does is it sets our lives in order, both personally, by saying these are crimes, don't do these. And socially, by saying this is your obligation to each other. This you shall do for and to one another. That's what government's for. Government is to enforce justice when it breaks and doesn't work well. The government comes in and says we need to set things right. Government cares for the oppressed and the downtrodden and the broken. That's what it's for. And that's what he's going to do, and he does it right. And his government is expanding and has been since the resurrection. He has been expanding the number of people who are inside his government, accepting him as king. And wherever he is king, he gives peace. And there's no end to this. It goes on and on and on as long as the world rolls on. All of the broken governments of Adam don't do this. None of them do it. They're all flawed. They're all imperfect. They do their best, but they make a mess. And some of them are just downright horrid and wicked. But his never is. He sits on the perfect throne, the throne established by God, the throne of David, and over his kingdom to establish this government. This is what he's born to do, to come to bring a government that generates those who step into it feel the release and the relief. And all of the shame just goes away and you're there knowing everything is right. He establishes that and he upholds it. If you have it, it's because he's doing it. He's maintaining it for you. He gives it to you. He is still the active king, the prince, reigning over it. And how does he reign? With justice and with righteousness. And those are both his attributes, but the nature of the kingdom that he makes. Justice is that issue of how people treat each other. And he comes to say, you're going to be good to everybody else. If somebody's hungry, you're going to see to that if you can. If you have the means, you will take care of it. Why? Because you're my subject and I'm your king, and I'm saying you need to do that. And when you do, you will be better, and so will they. So do it. It's just. It's right. It's good, and I am your king, and I reign over you with this government. And he comes with righteousness because he is the righteous king, but he also shares righteousness with us. He imputes it to us in a moment in our salvation, in our baptism, and it grows up within us as we become ever more like him all of our lives. So that we become better and better people. It's his government that accomplishes that in us. And he does it how long? From this time forth and forevermore. This is the reign of the Prince of Peace. Begun by God, given by God. It says the zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. Well, in Isaiah's time frame, that was true. For us, he has and is doing this. This is what it is to follow the Prince. And so His reign brings peace wherever He is listened to and obeyed, even when He says the most ridiculous things and says the most intolerable laws, like love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, or forgive everything, hold zero grudges. Well, you don't know what they did. I know what He did for you. Forgive it. Let it go. Don't let your hungers run your life. They will ruin your life. Run your hungers. Give them to God and grow into how they should be healthfully expressed. And that's His law. He comes giving that and saying, you will be good. I will reign, and the Lord is doing it to this day. This is what it comes from. The reign of Jesus Christ means peace. Those who live with Jesus find their way to peace, and it comes from nowhere else. Don't let the awe of the woods fool you. If you're not encountering the Christ, the peace is transitory. But in the Christ, that becomes gift to you, the place, a place to meet with Him and experience Him and love Him and grow in Him. But you don't have to go to the place. He is our He is our peace and our salvation and our joy and our song. He has come to give peace to the restless heart, to the broken heart, to the hurting heart. And He comes with His salvation and His love, and He says, let me reign over you and give you peace from this time forth and into eternity. That's who He is, because He is the wonderful Counselor. He says, bring me your problems, bring me your conflicts. Nations, come to me and let me advise you, and I will give you a goodness and a joy that you can find nowhere else. He is our mighty God, able to solve all of our troubles. Anything that comes at Him, comes at us, breaks upon Him, and He overcomes it all. He is strong enough to do it because He is God Himself. He is our everlasting Father who conquers death for us, and so He never leaves. In any trouble we face, any problem we run into, any sorrow, He is always there to collect us to Himself and to hold us until the trouble passes by, like a good father is supposed to do. And He is our Prince of Peace. Praise God, this is what we celebrate at this time of year. He has come. He was born to Jewish peasants so long ago, and He defeated death, and He reigns over us to this very day. How are you doing? Is there peace in your heart? Is He giving that to you even now? If you look into your life and you say to yourself, I'm chasing a contentment that I can never find. Well, you can't find it anywhere but Him. He redeems everything else and makes everything else good. Without Him, nothing can be. And if you're looking into your life and saying, my priorities are out of whack and I need to put myself again under the reign of this Prince, I need to live more with Him and less without Him, then let us know. We will pray. And it may be that you came into this place this morning carrying a burden of trouble, of pain, maybe of sin. Something's not right and you want to make it right. And if that's where you are, we want to pray for you. We really do. And if you haven't begun to follow the Christ, now is the time. There's no better day than today. If this morning you're subject to the invitation of Jesus, won't you come right now while we stand and sing?
When we walk with